Miss Carter, are you sure you want to sell this watch? The staff member hesitated. In the entire county, this is the only one of its kind. I cut him off. I'm sure. Please appraise it for me. He shook his head and sighed. What a pity. Mr. Johnson spent a fortune on this watch as a gift for his wife back then. I acted as though I hadn't heard him, collected the money, and left without looking back. In my previous life, this watch was the cause of my downfall. While I was pregnant, my husband's so-called soulmate pushed me down the stairs. I died, along with my unborn child. My husband, David Johnson, mourned me publicly and gave me a grand funeral, but within 2 months, he married his soulmate. It was only after my death that I discovered the truth. The man who had professed his love for me all those years had known the real cause of my death from the start. This time, I'll not only sell the watch but also rid myself of that scumbag and cut ties with that vile woman. More importantly, I'll seize the opportunities of this era and rebuild my life. As I stepped out of the pawn shop, I heard whispers around me. Hey, doesn't she look like the wife of factory director Johnson? The one he proposed to 5 times before she agreed to marry him. A mocking voice replied. She might look like her, but there's no way she's David Johnson's wife. Emily, didn't you just see her sell a watch? If she were really his wife, she'd be pampered and never short of money. Why would she need to sell a watch? The first person nodded in agreement. You're right. I must have been mistaken. Hearing their words, I smirked coldly. They weren't entirely wrong. David Johnson had indeed seemed to love me deeply. Back then, he proposed to me 5 times before I agreed to marry him, because I had been frail and sickly since childhood. He used his parents' entire savings to start a factory so that I could have a better life. That's how we got to where we are today. In the 1970s, a bicycle, a watch, or a sewing machine was considered an extravagant wedding gift. But David didn't want me to feel shortchanged. He insisted on buying me a limited edition watch, one of only a few in the country. That watch alone was worth as much as a house. Despite the envy and jealousy of others, David didn't care. He would simply hold me gently in his arms and say, as long as you like it, I'll get it for you, even if it's the stars in the sky. For 5 years of marriage, he lived up to those promises. Even when his parents objected, he transferred the factory ownership to me. In my past life, I truly believed he loved me deeply, until I became pregnant and his soulmate, Lisa Moore, pushed me down the stairs. Both I and my child died. Only then did I realize he had been playing both sides all along and had hidden it well. The heavens gave me another chance at life. And this time, I'm not interested in competing for a man. I'll seize the opportunities of this era and carve out my own success. When I returned home, I immediately began researching domestic steel prices. In my previous life, just a few years later, the reform and opening up period began. Those who hoarded steel at the time made fortunes. Selling this watch was the first step in my plan to turn my life around. Emily, why aren't you wearing more layers? What if you catch a cold? I hadn't noticed when David came back. He draped a coat over my shoulders and hugged me from behind. His familiar scent enveloped me, almost pulling me back into my old feelings. But this time, I calmly pushed him away. I'm not that fragile. David didn't say much, only ruffling my hair affectionately. He got up and lit the charcoal fire for me. Winter hadn't arrived yet, but David had already prepared a top-notch charcoal stove for me, buying the best charcoal available. Our neighbors couldn't stop talking about it. Emily, your husband is a rare gem. You should cherish him, or some vixen might steal him away. Whenever David heard that, he would smile, hold my hand, and look at me with a deep, affectionate gaze. I belong entirely to Emily. No one can take me away from her. Back then, I was completely immersed in the joy of happiness, unaware that he had another woman hidden in town. The same high-quality charcoal I used was also prepared for her. My thoughts snapped back to the present as David handed me a steaming bowl of herbal medicine. Be good, he said gently. Drink it while it's hot. I looked up sharply at the dark, murky liquid. Memories of an overheard conversation between David and his soulmate, Lisa Moore, flashed in my mind. David, did you give Emily the herbal medicine? How's it working? Lisa's hand trailed across his chest in a seductive gesture. The two of them stood in an intimate posture, their clothes disheveled. David's lustful expression briefly vanished as he frowned. I've been giving it to her for months now. Are you sure this medicine only prevents her from getting pregnant? It won't harm her health, right? Lisa chuckled playfully, her voice sweet but tinged with malice. Of course not. When have I ever lied to you, David? His expression softened. Good. If anything were to happen to her, I wouldn't forgive you. With that, he abruptly flipped Lisa onto the bed, pressing her beneath him as their passionate kiss deepened. That was when I discovered the truth. The medicine David had been giving me wasn't meant to nourish my health. It was to ensure I could never conceive. In our 5 years of marriage, we never had children. David, who claimed to love kids, had always shown eagerness to start a family with me. He'd prayed at temples, even brought a statue of the goddess of fertility into our home, all to help us conceive. But all of it was just a performance to fool me. Do I really have to drink this? I asked quietly, my gaze fixed on him. My voice trembled just slightly, almost imperceptibly. David had no idea I had uncovered the truth. He assumed I was hesitating because of the bitterness of the medicine. Smiling indulgently, he pulled 2 pieces of candy from his pocket. Be good, Emily. Drink this, and we'll have a better chance of having our own child sooner. Once you're done, these candies are all yours. A bitter smile tugged at the corners of my mouth. I lifted the bowl and drank it all in one go. After all, I had no desire to bear his child, nor did I want any future with him. Seeing me finish so quickly, David looked at me with approval and wrapped his arms around my waist from behind. Good girl, Emily. When we finally have a child, I'll leave all my factories to them, so they can live a life of happiness. Maybe they'll even get to study abroad one day. His eyes were clear, his voice full of hopeful dreams. No one would have guessed he was lying, but I was exhausted. Without a word, I gently pushed him away. I'm tired. I want to rest. David seemed like he wanted to say more, but I didn't give him the chance. The next morning, I woke up early. David had already gone to the factory. I didn't waste any time either. I began visiting different places to gather information about steel prices. Currently, the price of regular steel was slightly high. I decided to start with scrap steel. If I could buy enough at its lowest price, I'd be ready to seize the opportunity when the reform and opening up era arrived. The country had started large-scale infrastructure development, which meant that when the scrap steel I planned to stockpile was sold, its value would skyrocket dozens of times over. On my way to gather information, I unexpectedly encountered a familiar figure, Lisa Moore. She was wearing a beautiful dress and proudly showing off to the people around her. You don't know, do you? This dress was handmade by my boyfriend, she boasted. None of you could ever dream of owning something like this. The others laughed skeptically. Stop bluffing. Who's your boyfriend? A guy who can make clothes? There's no one in the whole county better than Factory Director Johnson. Are you saying your boyfriend is even better than him? Another person chimed in mockingly. Exactly. Stop bragging. No matter how many dresses you have, or how fancy they are, can they compare to the ones Emily Johnson wears? She has the best of everything. The group burst into laughter, leaving Lisa visibly upset. You people are so shallow, she snapped. My boyfriend is amazing. This dress I'm wearing is a limited edition. No one else has it but me. I glanced at her dress and immediately recognized the truth in her words. David's factory was a garment manufacturing business, and over the years, I had occasionally visited and gained some understanding of fabrics. Lisa's dress was made of top-grade silk. Years ago, David had spent months away from home to learn advanced techniques for working with silk in another region. I could tell at a glance that this dress was indeed handmade by him. I was about to walk away when someone noticed me. Emily, it really is you. The group turned to look at me, their expressions quickly shifting to fawning smiles. They approached me with flattery. We were just talking about you the other day. Why haven't you visited our jewelry store recently? We've got some new pieces in and we're thinking of gifting you a few sets. Over the years, David's endless devotion to me had made me a well-known figure in the county. Neighbors and townsfolk alike envied, admired, and sometimes resented me. Even though they gossiped behind my back, they always approached me with polite smiles and compliments. I gave them a casual greeting and was about to leave when Lisa called out to me. Sister, aren't we family? Why are you ignoring me? She smiled at me with a challenging, triumphant look in her eyes, brimming with smugness. I couldn't help but let out a cold laugh. Sister? What a joke. Lisa was the daughter of my father's mistress, brought into the family by my stepmother. While my mother was still alive, Lisa's mother had already been involved in an affair with my father. To secure her position, she shamelessly exposed their scandal in public, forcing my father to marry her. The stress of it all destroyed my mother. Just when her health had been improving, she passed away from anger and heartbreak. After that, I severed all ties with my family. I would never recognize my enemies as family. Lisa had no intention of reminiscing about the past. She brazenly pulled her collar aside to reveal a row of fresh, intimate red marks on her neck. With a smug smile, she looked me in the eye. See these? All of them were left by your husband. Emily, don't think that just because you married David Johnson, you'll be the factory director's wife forever. Men are all the same. No matter how much he seems to love you, he's still sneaking around with me behind your back. Her voice dripped with malice as she continued. Do you know what he said to me in bed? He said he's obsessed with my body. He loves my passion and boldness. Lisa sneered, her voice dripping with contempt. Not like you. So lifeless and boring. He even said he wouldn't mind dying in my bed. I stared coldly at the scene before me, feeling no emotion. In my previous life, I had already learned about their affair when he caused my death. Seeing my indifferent reaction, Lisa was taken aback. Emily, stop pretending. Nobody would feel nothing after seeing their man cheat. Don't you believe that David loves me more than he loves you now? Her provocative tone was laced with malice. I could tell she was deliberately trying to humiliate me. Typical of her mother's influence. Even her tactics mirrored that woman's. I smiled faintly. I believe you. If you want trash like him, he's yours. With that, I turned and walked away, unwilling to waste another moment on her. Lisa froze for a second before shouting after me. Stop acting so high and mighty. Emily. She made a move to grab me, but before she could touch me, someone shoved her forcefully. What do you think you're doing? Don't touch my wife. It was David. He had rushed over when he heard the commotion and immediately placed himself protectively in front of me. No matter the situation, he would always act like the perfect husband in front of others, even if the person causing trouble was his precious Lisa. Lisa's eyes turned red as she looked at him pitifully. David. Shut up. David cut her off sharply, a flicker of panic crossing his face. On the day I married Emily, she made it very clear that she has nothing to do with you or your family. She doesn't recognize you as her sister, so stop bothering her. If I catch you doing this again, I won't let it slide. I stayed silent, quietly observing David's expression. The irony of the situation almost made me laugh. The neighbors gathered around, watching the drama unfold. They praised David for being a responsible and devoted husband, completely unaware of the truth. When we got home, David eagerly prepared a basin of warm water for me to soak my feet. Honey, how did you end up running into Lisa today? Did she say anything to you? His tone carried a hint of nervousness. Lisa worked at his factory. In the past, he had claimed the deputy director had hired her without his knowledge. And later, he couldn't find a good reason to fire her because of the scandal surrounding her mother. I had always disliked Lisa, but I had never gone out of my way to ruin her life. What I didn't know back then was that their relationship had long since crossed the line. Now, hearing David's question, it was obvious he was worried Lisa might have said something she shouldn't have. I lowered my eyes and replied calmly, "We ran into each other by chance." I paused for a moment, then looked up at him. David lowered his head, but I noticed his body tense up, trying to appear nonchalant. He asked, "What did she say?" I let out a light laugh. "She thanked me for not kicking her out of the factory. She also thanked you for taking care of her." Relief washed over his face, and he exhaled deeply. "That's nothing. Just polite words. Don't pay any attention to her." After dinner, I leaned against the bed with a book in my hands, pretending to nap. David seemed to be waiting for me to fall asleep. When my breathing evened out, he quietly called my name a few times. When I didn't respond, He slipped on his coat and tiptoed out of the house, watching his retreating figure. I couldn't help but sneer inwardly. David Johnson, you truly are a remarkable actor. I suddenly opened my eyes, threw on my coat, and quietly followed him. From the dim corner near the entrance of our home, I could hear the hushed voices of a man and a woman. Lisa, didn't I tell you not to come around when Emily is at home? David's voice was low, tinged with warning. If she sees you, I won't spare you. Lisa let out a soft, whiny sound, her voice seductive as she wrapped her arms around his neck, playfully clinging to him. Emily will never know, she cooed. Didn't you say you love me more? You said you wanted me to have your child. You even promised you'd buy me a house one day. Don't tell me all those promises don't count anymore. I stood frozen, listening as they continued their exchange. David's face instantly grew cold. Lisa, I've warned you before, he said, his tone stern. We can only have this kind of relationship. I'm never going to marry you. If you're not happy with that, we'll break it off right now. Don't ever expect anything from me again. Lisa was taken aback, but quickly softened her tone. Don't be mad, David, she purred. I just miss you so much. I can't stand being away from you. I want to be by your side every day. She let out a soft laugh as her hand slid inside his shirt, teasing him. Since your wife is asleep, why don't we go to your place tonight? It's been days since we've been together. What do you say? David's voice turned cold as he interrupted her. Emily sleeps lightly. If she wakes up and sees us, it'll be a disaster. I heard their voices fade as they moved away, my mind racing. I shut my eyes and went back to bed, pulling the covers over my head and falling into a deep sleep. The next morning, I was about to head out to buy scrap steel when my good friend, Fong Yu, came to visit. We had made some money together in the past when we were in school. And even though we both got married and put those things aside, we hadn't forgotten each other. A few days ago, I had mentioned the idea of buying scrap steel, and she immediately jumped at the chance to help. Now, she was eager to share some exciting news with me. Man, my dad made some contacts for us in the Soviet Union, she said, barely able to contain her excitement. There's a huge stockpile of scrap steel over there, over 100,000 tons, and we can buy it at an extremely low price. I had my dad hold it for us, but we need to send someone to pay the deposit first. I was intrigued and began to plan our trip to the Soviet Union. However, before I could go, there was something else I needed to take care of. In this country, as long as one party in a marriage expresses a desire for divorce, they can apply for it, and the other party just needs to sign the papers. The staff member patiently explained that the divorce process wasn't difficult at all. I obtained the divorce papers and went home. On the final page, I signed my name. I submitted one copy to the Civil Affairs office, and the other I placed in the drawer of my bedside table. Then, I wrote a note and stuck it on top of the drawer, which read, "This is a gift for you. Open it in 3 days." 3 days later, David came home with a furrowed brow, his eyes bloodshot. He took a familiar watch from his pocket and gently, yet with a sense of sadness, questioned me. I passed by the pawn shop and saw this watch. I recognized it instantly. It's the one I gave you. It's a symbol of our love. Why did you sell it? I fell silent, unwilling to speak. In my previous life, this very watch had been the cause of my downfall. Lisa had been jealous of it, and she caused the death of both me and my unborn child. After my death, she took that watch, sold it for a significant amount of money, and bought 5 houses with the proceeds. Then, she came to my grave, flaunting her triumph. Emily, what were you so proud of back then? I told you, didn't I? The one who laughs last is the real winner. So what if you wore this watch for 5 years? In the end, you still died, and it became mine. And your man? He's mine now too. Even if this watch weren't worth a penny, I'd throw it in the trash because it tainted love. David, seeing my silence, didn't push me. Instead, he gently took my wrist and put the watch back on me. Emily, this is a symbol of our love. I bought it back for you. Don't do anything foolish again. Okay. He turned and took a stack of cash from his wallet, handing it to me. Emily, you must not have had enough pocket money, which is why you sold the watch. If you need money in the future, Just let me know. Don't hold back. I took the money without looking up and said, "Can you give me another $50,000? I thought he would refuse. After all, $50,000 was an astronomical amount. But to my surprise, David only hesitated briefly before smiling and agreeing. Of course. I'll withdraw it for you right away. I was puzzled. Aren't you going to ask me what I need it for? David knelt down before me, his gaze earnest and filled with devotion. Emily, if you're doing something, you must have your reasons. As your husband, my only job is to support you. My eyes stung with tears. After living 2 lifetimes, I still couldn't understand. David Johnson, who was so good to me, so devoted, why did he betray me? That evening, I planned to have a final conversation with him, to bid him farewell. But before I could, an employee from his factory came knocking on our door. Director Johnson, you need to come back to the factory immediately. Something urgent has come up. David's expression shifted, and he quickly grabbed his coat. I'm on my way, he said, turning to kiss me softly on the cheek. If I'm late, don't wait up. Just go to bed. I watched his figure disappear from the doorway. Moments later, he reappeared, only not at the factory. Instead, he was in a secluded alley, passionately kissing Lisa. I told you I'd spend tomorrow with you. Why the rush tonight? David murmured, his voice low but tinged with indulgence. Lisa's breathing was labored, but her tone was laced with delight. David, I'm pregnant. David froze for a moment before breaking into a wide grin. What did you just say? Are you serious? I felt my last shred of hope die. Without a word, I turned back home and began packing my belongings. The next morning, David left early for the factory. I left the divorce papers on the table, signed and ready, and boarded a train to the Soviet Union with my friend Fong Yu. I didn't look back. That evening, David didn't return home. Instead, he sent a factory worker to deliver a message, saying he was working late. The worker came to my door and knocked, but there was no response. That moment, David lay sprawled on a bed, his body drenched in sweat. Lisa rested languidly against his bare chest, tracing circles on his skin with her fingers. David, you're such a beast. Lisa teased with a soft laugh. Every time you see me, it's like you're a starving wolf. Don't you have a wife at home? Yet with me, you're so rough and passionate, as if you don't know how to hold back. David chuckled, pulling her closer as he kissed her forehead. Only a seductive little witch like you could make me lose control like this. As he held her, his thoughts drifted. He recalled the 5 years he had been married to me. Every moment of intimacy had been calm, restrained, and utterly dull. Over time, it had become tedious. Nothing like the thrill of sneaking around. And Lisa, with her flirtatious charm, knew exactly how to ignite his desires. She had a way of making him feel he couldn't resist her, couldn't stop himself from giving in. Lisa smiled coyly, her fingers trailing down his chest. What are you thinking about? She whispered. Are you thinking about your wife waiting for you all alone at home? Lisa teased, her voice playful and full of mischief. David shook his head. I'm thinking about your pregnancy. Your belly is going to get bigger, and working at the factory won't be suitable anymore. In a few days, I'll arrange to buy you a house on the east side of town. You can stay home and take care of yourself properly. Before he could finish his sentence, a frantic voice called from outside. Director Johnson, something's happened. David's face darkened immediately. He quickly got up and began putting on his clothes. When the factory worker burst in, David scolded him angrily. What are you panicking about? It's the middle of the night. If the neighbors hear I'm here, how am I supposed to live tomorrow? Do you even want to keep your job? The worker, gasping for breath, stammered. It's not that, sir. You asked me to go to your house and tell your wife you'd be working late tonight. But what? David's expression grew colder. But your wife isn't home. The words hung in the air, leaving both David and Lisa stunned. David's voice carried a note of disbelief. What nonsense are you talking about? Emily rarely leaves the house unless it's for something important. If she's not home, where else could she be? He wasn't wrong. Over the 5 years we'd been married, I had almost never left the house unless absolutely necessary. The worker, on the verge of tears, insisted. It's true. I knocked for a long time, and no one answered. The house was completely dark. It's late, and there weren't any lights on. For the first time, David sensed that something was amiss, ignoring Lisa's attempts to stop him. He hastily threw on his clothes and ran toward home. When he arrived, the sight of the dark, empty house made him freeze in his tracks. "Emily," he called out, his voice trembling. He kicked the door open in a panic and searched the entire house, turning it upside down. But I was nowhere to be found. Instead, he immediately noticed that my suitcase was missing. The always composed and confident factory director Johnson turned pale, his legs almost giving out beneath him. "Director, please don't worry." The worker tried to console him. "Maybe your wife had something urgent to take care of and stepped out for a bit. She might come back soon." But this weak excuse did nothing to reassure David. He shook his head wildly. "No, impossible. We've been married for 5 years. This is her home. Her only home. She spends most of her time reading. So indifferent to everything else in the world. How could she suddenly leave in the middle of the night for something urgent? I have to find her. No matter where she is. I'll bring her back." That night, the factory shut down, and David mobilized everyone to search for me. They scoured the entire county, but no one found any trace of me. Finally, an elderly woman who loved to gossip stopped them. "Are you looking for Emily? She left yesterday morning." David's face went ashen as he pressed her for more details. "Where did she go?" The old woman scratched her head. "I think she went to the Soviet Union." David staggered, almost losing his footing. "What did you say? The Soviet Union?" David's face turned deathly pale. "She's never even left the county much. Why would she go to the Soviet Union?" His frantic demeanor startled the old woman. I don't know," she stammered. "I just overheard her talking with another young lady about going to the Soviet Union. They also mentioned something about a divorce." David's entire body stiffened before finally letting go of the old woman, who wasted no time fleeing in fear. "Divorce? No, impossible," he muttered to himself, shaking his head as he started running back toward the house. The person she saw couldn't have been Emily. She must have mistaken someone else for her. It was as if he were desperately trying to convince himself. Back at the house, he frantically searched for any sign of me, proof that I hadn't really left. Finally, his eyes landed on the bedside drawer, where a small note was stuck to the front. A gift. David's expression shifted instantly, hope flickering across his face. "I knew it," he murmured. "I knew it. Emily must be planning a surprise for me. There's no way she would ever divorce me. What's inside must be something she's carefully prepared for me. A game. Maybe. I need to open it right away and find her." But as he pulled open the drawer, David froze. His trembling hands picked up a document, and the bold words on the cover immediately caught his eye. Divorce agreement. Flipping to the last page, he found my signature, neat and unmistakable, lying there silently. He knew my handwriting all too well. David's eyes turned red, tears welling up as he muttered in disbelief. How is this possible? Emily, what did I do wrong? Why would you want a divorce?" His mind raced, and a thought struck him. Could it be Lisa? Did she find out about us? But just as quickly, he dismissed the idea. "No, that's impossible. I've hidden everything so well. And Emily has always trusted me completely. There's no way she could know." Disheveled and dazed, David wandered aimlessly through the streets, calling my name. The light in his eyes had dimmed, leaving him hollow and lost. Neighbors whispered and pointed, shocked to see the usually composed and proud factory director reduced to such a state. Passing by the pawn shop, the owner called out to him, "Director Johnson, really is you. I have to say, I don't understand what's going on between you and your wife. Are you two playing some kind of game? You must have too much money to waste." David turned around sluggishly, not immediately grasping the meaning of the man's words. But the moment his eyes landed on the familiar watch in the owner's hand, everything became painfully clear. "Why is this watch here?" David demanded, his voice trembling. "Didn't I buy it back from you just a few days ago?" The owner sighed and shook his head with a wry smile. "Yes, You did. But just a couple of days later, your wife, Emily, came back and sold it again. Honestly, Director Johnson, even if you're rich, this kind of wastefulness is too much. David snatched the watch from the owner's hand, his grip tightening as a mix of anger and despair filled his eyes. Emily, he muttered through clenched teeth. Why? Why would you do this to me? Why do you keep selling the watch over and over again? Do you really not love me anymore? But there was no one to answer David's desperate question. Once again, he bought the watch back, rushing home without even stopping for a meal, hoping to find me there. Sitting alone in the empty house, David felt panic creeping in for the first time. Emily, please come back. He pleaded to the silence. If I've done something wrong, tell me, yell at me, hit me, anything. Just don't leave me, please. No matter how much he racked his brain, he couldn't figure out why I had filed for divorce. He even went to the civil affairs office to ask about it. The law was clear. As long as one party filed for divorce, could take effect immediately. My copy of the agreement had already been submitted, while the other remained on the table at home, untouched. On the 7th day after I left, David, exhausted and disheveled, knelt in front of the statue of the Goddess of Mercy, begging for my return. His co-workers finally intervened, urging him to eat and return to the factory. David, if you don't get back to the factory soon, it's going to fall apart. One colleague advised. No, I have to stay here and wait for Emily. I must have done something to upset her. That's why she left me. I need to be here when she comes back. A colleague with a cigarette dangling from his lips crossed his arms and snickered. David, stop pretending to be so devoted. Everyone knows why she left. Emily must have found out you've been seeing someone else. Don't let her quiet demeanor fool you. She's tougher than she looks. She didn't make a scene. Just left quietly, divorced you, and disappeared. That's exactly her style. David's eyes turned red, and he lunged at the man, punching him. Don't you dare talk about Emily. Lisa, who had been keeping quiet all this time, finally decided she couldn't hide anymore. Her belly was beginning to show, and if she didn't claim her place now, she feared she'd remain the other woman forever. In front of everyone, she boldly threw herself into David's arms. David, don't do this to yourself, she said, tears streaming down her face. Think about me and our child. You need to take care of yourself. For our sake. What would we do if something happened to you? The onlookers were stunned, their jaws practically hitting the ground. David's face twisted in shock. He shoved Lisa away forcefully. What are you talking about? What child? For a moment, guilt flashed across his face, and he looked like he wanted to flee. But Lisa wasn't about to let him go so easily. Stop pretending. Emily's already divorced you. She doesn't want you anymore. David, can't you see? I'm the one who truly loves you. I'm the one willing to have your child and build a life with you. Before she could finish, David slapped her hard across the face. Lisa stumbled backward and fell, too stunned to cry. Get out, David roared. If you dare spread more lies, I'll tear your mouth apart. Emily is my wife, and I'm waiting for her to come back. Lisa never imagined that David would treat her so coldly, let alone hit her in front of so many people. Her humiliation was complete as he abandoned her without a second glance. The neighbors, who had been watching the drama unfold, began hurling rotten eggs and wilted vegetables at Lisa. No wonder Emily, such a good woman, would suddenly divorce him. Turns out it's because of this shameless homewrecker. Shameless, just like her mother. Both of them nothing but cheap women who love seducing men. Sisters, let's teach her a lesson. Outside, the commotion was chaotic, but David paid no attention. He was like a walking corpse, his only thought waiting for my return. 2 months later, one afternoon, someone shouted excitedly, Director Johnson, Emily is back. David didn't even bother putting on his shoes. Barefoot, he ran outside to find me. In just 2 months, David had become tanned and gaunt, looking utterly haggard. He stared at me as though I were a stranger, but his eyes were filled with glistening tears. Emily, where have you been these past 2 months? You're finally back. Wearing sunglasses and an emotionless expression. I glanced at him briefly. Director Johnson, I hope you've been well. I explained. Fong Yu and I spent the past 2 months in the Soviet Union, purchasing hundreds of thousands of tons of scrap steel at low prices. We took advantage of the new policy regulations and sold the steel when prices skyrocketed, making over 10 times our investment. Now we've established our own company and become wealthier than you. I'm a bona fide millionaire now. David's eyes widened as he took in my luxurious attire. His excitement made his voice tremble. Emily, I won't ask about the past. All that matters is that you've come back. I knew the divorce agreement must have been a misunderstanding. I knew you'd return because you've always loved me. Looking at his feigned deep affection, I felt nothing but disgust. I interrupted him with a cold laugh. Director Johnson, don't misunderstand. We returned to town to set up our company and purchase a property. It has nothing to do with you. Surely you've already seen it for yourself. We divorced 2 months ago. Also, Lisa is pregnant with your child. If you're a real man, you should marry her and take responsibility. David refused to believe my words, blocking my path like a madman in the middle of the street. No, this must be a dream. Emily, how could you say such things? And how did you become so wealthy? A realization seemed to dawn on him, and his pupils shrank with suspicion. Did you rely on another man? I scoffed and gestured toward Lisa, who was hiding in the corner, watching us. Only someone like her would rely on men. The money I earned was through hard work with Fong Yu. The initial funds came from selling that watch. Twice. Actually, come to think of it, I owe my success to you. Without you, I wouldn't have had the starting capital. David stared at me in stunned silence, his face turning pale. What did you just call me? Ex-husband. Even now, he couldn't accept the reality of our divorce. Since my return to town, he had repeatedly begged me to take him back, hoping I'd look at him with affection again. With a smirk, I said mockingly, all right, I'll consider it, but only if you get rid of Lisa first. David's face lit up with joy as he rushed off. The next day, he came back, beaming with excitement. Emily, Lisa is no longer an obstacle for us. I took her to the hospital for an abortion. The doctor said she won't be able to conceive again. I've solved the problem. Please forgive me. I couldn't help but laugh coldly at his naivety. He truly thought that was the solution. But wasn't the real problem him? Clapping my hands, called out, Darling, come here. From the car, a younger, more handsome man stepped out. He walked toward me with a warm smile, exuding confidence. I naturally linked my arm through his and said with a calm smile, Let me introduce you. This is my husband. And this, I gestured toward David, is my ex-husband, David Johnson. David's face darkened immediately. His gaze fixated on the man by my side. Gritting his teeth, he demanded, Who are you? Emily, you must be mistaken. I'm your husband. Didn't you just say that if I dealt with Lisa, you'd consider getting back together with me? I chuckled, my tone light and dismissive. That's right. I did say I'd consider it. And now I've considered. And the answer is no. I continued. While in the Soviet Union, Fong Yu and I faced a major challenge. It was thanks to Chan He that we overcame it. He's younger than me by quite a bit. But he's strong, capable, and dependable. After 2 lifetimes, I finally realized what I truly want. Comfort and happiness are far more important than love. Without sparing another glance at David's ashen face, I turned and left with Chan He by my side. Over the following weeks, we settled back into the county, acquired new factory space, launched our company, and even bought several properties. I officially registered my marriage with Chan He, making it clear that I wasn't hiding from David. I wanted him to see firsthand how happy I was. But it wasn't long before David lost his mind. Just months after my marriage to Chan He, I became pregnant. It was a brutal slap to David's face, sparking endless gossip among the townspeople. No wonder they were married for 5 years without a child. The moment Emily remarried, she got pregnant right away. Looks like the problem was David all along. Exactly. And he still had the nerve to sneak around with another woman? Turns out the real issue was that David isn't capable. I mean, look at Emily. She marries someone else. And bam, pregnant in no time. Poor woman had to put up with David for so long. Their words, sharp and relentless, were like knives to David's pride. He lashed out like a mad dog, shouting at the neighbors and chasing them off with a stick, while David was consumed with plotting ways to win me back. His factory fell into chaos. An insider betrayed him, and within months, the business was drowning in debt. Unable to recover, the factory was sold to an out-of-town investor, leaving David bankrupt. Meanwhile, my scrap steel company thrived. I became the wealthiest person in the county. My success and happy marriage with Chan he becoming the envy of everyone. David, now utterly destitute and alone, spiraled further into madness. One day, he confronted Chen He, throwing a wild punch. But my husband, stronger and quicker, beat him to a pulp, bruised and battered. David knelt before me, begging, "Emily, you know I've loved you with my life since the day we got married. That man, he's just after your money. Do you really think he loves you? He's only pretending to trick you." I laughed softly, my voice tinged with mockery. "Is that so? Well, I'm not worried. Before we got married, I had a prenuptial agreement drafted. If we divorce or something happens to me, he won't get a single cent. David, your life is in ruins. How have you still not learned your lesson?" David stared at me, speechless, his eyes filled with disbelief. Finally, he shook his head and muttered, "Emily, you'll regret this. I'll make you come back to me in my own way." David said, "I'll prove to you that the one who loves you the most has always been me." First, I didn't take his words seriously, but a few days later, with nothing left to lose, David made a desperate move. In an attempt to win me back, he tried to run over my husband with his car. Thankfully, I had anticipated his actions. The police arrested David on the spot, and he was sentenced to 10 years in prison for attempted murder. After his sentencing, he sent word through someone, saying he wanted to see me one last time before starting his sentence. I hesitated for a long time but ultimately decided to go. "You came, Emily." David sat in the shadows where the sunlight couldn't reach. He looked exhausted but smiled up at me as if he had been expecting me. "I knew you'd come." During that conversation, I learned truths that hadn't come to light in my previous life. As it turned out, David had also been reborn. That was why he had forced me to drink the herbal medicine that prevented pregnancy. He explained, "I didn't want to lose you. As long as you didn't get pregnant, you wouldn't die at Lisa's hands." Sometimes, when a person's actions are so absurd, all you can do is laugh. He claimed to love me, yet even after living a second life, the best solution he could come up with to keep me alive was to ensure I wouldn't have children. Even then, he still chose to betray me and have an affair with another woman. I stood up with a faint, resigned smile. "David, I don't think there's anything more for us to say. You didn't value me in the past. And in this life, it's no different. I've always believed that pretending to be deeply in love while doing hurtful things in the name of love is more painful than outright harm." Looking down at him one last time, I said, "David, spend your time in prison reflecting on what kind of person you want to be. As for me, we have nothing more to do with each other." A few months later, I gave birth to twins. My husband, though young, proved to be a responsible and devoted partner. He held my hand throughout the delivery, crying harder than I did. "Emily, you've worked so hard. I swear I'll love you and our children with everything I have." I smiled softly but said nothing. I still believe in love, but I've come to understand that hearts can change, and so can love. From now on, I won't place my happiness in someone else's hands. Instead, I'll focus on living my life to the fullest and loving myself wholeheartedly. With spring on the horizon, each new day brings promise. From now until forever, I'll embrace the life I've built. The first story has concluded. We invite you to listen to the second story. I had been married to Ethan for 50 years. Throughout those years, he was always polite to me, distant as though we were strangers. It wasn't until he was on his deathbed that he finally told me, "I'm sorry, Emily. Back then, I stole your college acceptance letter and gave it to Claire. I thought that being married to you for 50 years would be enough to repay you." I was so furious I coughed up blood. "Ethan, what you owe me can never be repaid." When I opened my eyes, Ethan had just returned from the army. He handed me a marriage application and said, "I'll take responsibility for you. Emily, I only have 5 days of leave. When I get back, we'll get the certificate. I was stunned and looked up at the calendar on the table. It was July 29, 1978. The exact day my acceptance letter had arrived in my past life. Back then, Ethan had stolen it and given it to Claire, his childhood sweetheart. I had been forced to marry him. Everyone said I was lucky, but only I knew the truth. For 50 years, he treated me with indifference, a perfunctory attitude toward our marriage. Even after we had children, he never touched me. I had endured decades of such a life. Now that I had a chance to start over, I didn't want his compensation. This time, I take control of my own life. I pushed him away and said coldly, "There's no need. Ethan, I won't marry you." His face darkened. "Emily, what are you talking about?" he asked. "I'm not joking. Ethan, I don't like you, so there's no need for us to get married." He grabbed my arm, but I shook him off and retreated to my room. I locked the door, took my ID and household registration book, and tucked them into my bag. Outside, Ethan was furious. "Emily, stop this nonsense," he shouted. I opened the door and looked at him icily. "You and me? Ethan, everyone knows you and Claire are a couple. What will she do if you marry me? You'd be abandoning her, playing both sides. If you keep pushing this, I'll report you to your unit." A flicker of panic crossed his face. Right now, he was just an ordinary soldier, far from the prominent figure he'd become in my past life. I had no reason to fear him now. Seizing the moment while he was stunned, I bolted out the door. The first person I saw was Claire. When she saw me, she looked visibly uneasy. "Emily, why? Didn't Ethan say he was going to settle things with you? Why haven't you gone with him yet?" Her voice was so loud that the neighbors gathered around. As she was about to slip away, I called out sharply, "Claire, what nonsense are you spouting? You're the one who's been close with Ethan, not me. Don't make things up. I'm about to go to college." The neighbors turned to look at Claire. Ethan appeared as well, his face grim. "Emily, you're the one who wrote to me, asking me to come back. What does this have to do with Claire? I worked hard to save up for this leave and filed the application. If you've changed your mind, fine, but don't drag her into this." Ethan spoke with a tone of righteousness, and the neighbors believed him. Some even started to push me toward him. Panic set in. If this dragged on any longer, my acceptance letter would be gone for good. I pinched my thigh hard, the pain bringing tears to my eyes. "You two have been involved for a long time, haven't you? Claire, you gave him that watch he wears every day. And that floral shirt he gave you? You're still wearing it. You want to climb the social ladder and drag me down as your scapegoat? Well, I'm Emily, my parents' treasure, and I won't let you humiliate me like this." I choked up, my voice trembling with anger. "Ethan, if you wanted to marry me, you should have shown up yesterday. Instead, you were wandering the town with Claire. I saw everything." My tears and words stirred the crowd. Everyone began whispering among themselves, their eyes darting between Claire and Ethan. Claire was wearing that white shirt with tiny red flowers, her favorite. Seizing the moment, I grabbed Ethan's wrist and pulled up his sleeve, revealing the watch. "What else do you have to say? You think I can't find someone else to marry? Do you think you can scheme against me like this?" The way the villagers looked at Ethan and Claire changed instantly. Ethan's composure cracked, and Claire's face grew panicked. "Emily, you..." Claire stammered, her voice trembling. "What about me, Claire?" I cut her off sharply. "Didn't you once say it didn't matter if your grades were poor because you just marry Ethan and live a good life with him? Now you're pushing me to marry him? Is it because there's something wrong with Ethan? Otherwise, why would you willingly give him up to me?" Ethan's face turned green with rage as the crowd began murmuring again. "Back in school," someone whispered, "Ethan and Claire were inseparable. They acted like they were one person. Didn't Ethan even give her eggs from his family's chickens to keep her healthy?" another added. "And wasn't it Ethan who found an apprenticeship for Claire's younger brother in town?" someone else chimed in. The villagers' words and pointed gazes were sharp as knives. Ethan's anger flared, violence simmering in his eyes. But I seized the opportunity to break free. With the crowd's eyes on me, I ran off. Today was the day college acceptance letters arrived. I couldn't afford to miss mine. If I got into college, Ethan wouldn't hold a candle to me. Ethan's face turned ashen with rage. But Claire scoffed. What if you don't get in? Then you'll have nothing left. Not even a way out. Emily, Ethan and I grew up together. I see him as an older brother. Don't misunderstand. I sneered. If anyone doesn't get in, it'll be you. I have good grades. So how could I possibly miss out? Just wait and see. And by the way, Ethan, since you rushed back here after receiving her letter, maybe you should explain to your commanding officer why you used up your leave. You won't get another one until after the new year. Before Claire could say anything, a man named Daniel, Ethan's superior, strode over. Ethan, why are you here? Daniel's sharp gaze landed on Claire. Was it you who sent that telegram? Claire panicked and stammered. It wasn't me. I stepped forward, snatching a telegram from Ethan's pocket. Look at this. Isn't it Claire's handwriting? The telegram contained only 4 words. Return home immediately. Daniel's eyes turned venomous as he glared at Claire. You little wretch. Ethan hasn't been home for New Year's in 3 years. And now he's suddenly back because of you? You've been up to no good. Seeing this, Ethan quickly shielded Claire. But it was too late. Everyone understood exactly what was going on. Seizing the opportunity, I sprinted toward the school. Claire was so anxious that she burst into tears. But I didn't care anymore. This time, I wouldn't let anyone steal my life from me. Running as fast as I could, I reached the school out of breath. At the entrance, the elderly guard looked at me with concern and asked, Young lady, what's wrong? Did a wolf chase you? No, sir. I managed to gasp. My college acceptance letter. I need to find Mr. Sue upstairs. The guard pointed the way, and I rushed inside. Bursting into the principal's office, I saw it, a bright red envelope sitting on the desk. Relief washed over me. Sir, I'm Emily. Has my college acceptance letter arrived? The principal looked up and smiled. Emily, you're just in time. I was about to call your village office. Here it is. Your acceptance letter to Capital Medical University. He handed me the letter, and I opened it with trembling hands. Tears of joy streamed down my face. After 2 lifetimes, I was finally holding my rightful acceptance letter. Quickly, I presented my ID and household registration book, signed the necessary forms, and carefully tucked the letter into my bag. I thanked the principal profusely and left the office. As I reached the school gate, I saw Ethan and Claire hurrying toward the school. Looking flustered, a cold smile crept across my face. Without hesitation, I exited through the back gate. On the way, I stopped by a shop to buy some candies and eggs before heading straight to my uncle's workplace in the city. When my uncle saw me, he froze for a moment. Emily, what brings you here? His wife, standing nearby, commented sarcastically. What's with you showing up in this scorching heat? Smiling, I replied, Auntie, I've been accepted to college. I came here today to thank you both for your help with my application. I took out the acceptance letter and showed it to my uncle. Holding the bag of gifts I had brought, I handed them over. My aunt's expression softened, and my uncle looked genuinely pleased. That's wonderful news, Emily. My uncle said warmly, come inside and have dinner with us. Seizing the moment, I made a request. Uncle, I've been accepted. But someone from the village didn't make it and seemed furious when I collected my letter. I'm worried they might try to cause trouble. Could we go ahead and transfer my household registration to the school and complete the paperwork now? I didn't say much, but my uncle noticed the anxiety on my face and seemed to understand. Don't worry, Emily. You're the first person in our family to go to college. No one will dare to mess with you. I'll help you transfer everything. With my uncle's assurance, I finally felt at ease. After dinner, he took me to the local newspaper office to meet a friend who could help expedite the process. Even though the school year hadn't started yet, we managed to move my records to the university's collective household registration with ease. Connections made everything smoother, and we just needed a certificate from the village to complete the transfer. Before leaving, I noticed a typewriter at the newspaper office and suddenly had an idea. 2 hours later, when I returned to the village, I told my parents about everything. They were so excited that they bought firecrackers that very day and invited the entire village to a celebratory meal. I wanted everyone to know that I was the one who had gotten into college. For a while, People came in droves to offer their congratulations. Claire showed up too, her eyes red and swollen, with a slap mark still visible on her face. It was only then that I learned what had happened after I left. Daniel had hit her, and both families had gotten into a shouting match, their faces red with fury. Claire looked at me with jealousy in her eyes, but her words betrayed none of it. Emily, you really got in. Huh, that's amazing. Unlike me, I failed. I'm so envious of you. Do you think I could take a look at your acceptance letter? The villagers chimed in, curious. Yeah, Emily, show us. We've never seen a college acceptance letter before. Smiling, I didn't hesitate to take it out. Just be careful with it, I said. This is my only copy. Without it, I won't be able to go to college. The letter was passed around carefully, from one person to the next, and eventually returned to me. I placed it under my pillow for safekeeping and joined everyone outside for the meal. When I returned later, the letter was gone. I wasn't surprised. A cold smile crept across my face. Stealing? Huh, just wait. This time, you'll regret it forever. I didn't make a scene. The next day, both Ethan and Claire were gone. I heard Ethan had returned to his unit for urgent matters, and Claire had gone to see him off. Meanwhile, my uncle arrived and went straight to the village chief, completing the transfer of my household registration to the school's collective record. Holding the updated registration page in my hands, I finally felt at ease. When the first day of school arrived, I carried my luggage to the university. At the registration desk, I saw Claire arguing with someone. There must be a mistake. My acceptance letter is real. My household registration will be transferred soon. I just forgot to bring it. Here's a certificate from the village chief. Hearing this, I sneered. You're claiming to be Emily? Then who am I? I stepped forward, holding out my acceptance letter and registration book. Here are my documents, including the acceptance letter. Claire, are you trying to impersonate me? Claire's face went pale. You're lying. She stammered. Her expression gave her away immediately, and the teacher supervising the registration desk quickly understood the situation. Without hesitation, I snatched the certificate from her hands. Just then, the village chief arrived. In my past life, Ethan alone couldn't have pulled off Claire's impersonation. It turned out the village chief had helped. This time, they wouldn't get away with it. Claire, I've already called the police. You and your accomplices can wait for them to arrive. Claire panicked, her voice trembling. Emily, how dare you? The teacher at the desk spoke sternly. So, you're the real Emily, they said, turning to me. And she's the impersonator. How bold of you, they said, glaring at Claire. Claire was in complete disarray, dropping her things. She tried to run but was immediately tackled to the ground by the police who had just arrived. Her face contorted with rage as she shouted, Emily, you've ruined me. I won't let you get away with this. A person who commits crimes and still dares to threaten me? That wouldn't stand. I calmly explained the situation to the officers, handing over the evidence I had collected. The teacher also vouched for me, confirming that Claire had arrived the day before and failed to provide proper registration documents. We didn't accept Claire because the acceptance letter she presented was fake. It was at that moment Claire finally realized what had happened. She snapped her head up and glared at me. It was you, Emily. You did this on purpose. I couldn't help but let out a cold laugh. Did I tell you to impersonate me? You failed your exams and couldn't get into college. So you decided to steal my life? People like you, rats in the gutter, always blame others for your failures. Claire's face turned red with shame as my words hit her like a slap. She was taken away for questioning, and shortly after, the village chief was arrested as well. When my parents heard the news, they rushed over, trembling with anger when they learned Claire had tried to impersonate me. I knew something was wrong with how she kept visiting our house, asking about your school. My mother fumed. She had this plan all along. Shameless. Meanwhile, Ethan hadn't left town. He had been staying at a nearby guest house. When he heard about the commotion, he rushed over. Seeing me, his face turned pale as a sheet. Ethan, why are you still here? I asked him deliberately. His eyes turned red. Emily, can't you let this go? I can marry you. Hearing this, I burst into laughter. I raised my hand and slapped him hard across the face. Marry me? Who do you think you are? Is marriage supposed to be some sort of charity for me? I'm a college student now. I don't need your pity or your so-called kindness. If you're so worried about her, why don't you marry Claire yourself? Once she's out of jail, she'll probably have no one else. You can give her a home. Ethan was stunned, his face a mixture of shock and embarrassment. Emily, it's not your fault she's in trouble. Not my fault. I cut him off. What exactly did I do? I was just worried my acceptance letter might get damaged, so I made a fake one at the newspaper office as a precaution. Who knew she'd have the audacity to steal it and use it as her own? Whatever happens to her now, she deserves it. I won't forgive her. My life is mine to control, and none of you have any right to interfere. I shoved Ethan hard, causing him to stumble back against the wall. He tried to approach me again, but my father stepped in, his voice sharp and unyielding. Take another step, and I'll report you to the police as one of her accomplices. Ethan froze. His face drained of color, and didn't dare come closer. I looked at him with disdain. And where's your so-called true love now? Ready to give up so quickly? Ethan didn't respond, but I wasn't worried. I had plenty of ways to deal with people like him. Claire's attempt to deny everything didn't hold up, although the acceptance letter she had was fake, and she didn't have the proper registration documents. She wasn't severely punished. However, I insisted she had stolen my belongings and had malicious intent. As a result, she was forced to write an apology letter and pay me 300 yuan in compensation. That money, unsurprisingly, came from Ethan. As for the village chief, his age worked in his favor, and he wasn't harshly penalized. The village chief, after realizing he had misjudged Claire and provided her with a fake certificate, was dismissed from his position and fined 100 yuan. With the 400 yuan compensation in my pocket, I felt triumphant. I told my parents to spread the news far and wide, ensuring everyone knew the truth. Our city was only an hour away from the provincial capital, so the rumors spread quickly. Claire's reputation was completely ruined. I also made sure my parents let Daniel know that the 300 yuan compensation had come from Ethan. Knowing Daniel's temperament, he wouldn't let Claire's family off the hook easily. Back at school, I smoothly completed my registration and started my university life. To my surprise, a month later, during a weekend visit home, I stumbled upon Claire's wedding. I was taken aback when my mother told me Claire had married Ethan. That 300 yuan? Consider it her dowry. My mom said with disdain. Daniel arranged the wedding hastily. Claire was married into Ethan's family empty-handed. Since Ethan had to return to his unit, Claire's wedding ceremony was held with a rooster in place of the groom. The absurdity of the situation left me both amused and indifferent. Well, Claire and Ethan, you're married now. I hope you two can live happily ever after, I thought with a smirk. University life kept me incredibly busy. My schedule was packed with classes, and during my free time, I wrote articles to earn extra money. My life was fulfilling, far removed from the monotonous family life and Ethan's emotional coldness that had suffocated me in my previous life. For the first time, I discovered how vibrant and exciting life could be. I couldn't believe that, in this second chance at life, I had become such a lively and optimistic person. The more I thought about it, the more I resented Ethan for the way he had treated me before. Fortunately, Ethan didn't return to the village for the next few years. However, Claire frequently traveled to his station to visit him. Daniel, whenever he mentioned this, cursed Claire for dragging Ethan down. If only Ethan had married Emily instead, he'd complain. Hearing this, my mother scoffed. Give me a break. Do you think I don't know the village chief was your second uncle? Claire impersonated my Emily, and even that fake certificate might have been orchestrated by Ethan. Honestly, our Emily was too kind. We should have reported Ethan to his unit back then, and made sure he faced disciplinary action. And he had the nerve to think he could marry our Emily? Ridiculous. Daniel, clearly flustered, left without another word. It dawned on me that the entire Ethan family was hypocritical and revolting. In my previous life, after marrying Ethan, Daniel had imposed countless rules on me. He'd make me wake up before dawn to cook. And during winter, He'd insist I hand wash heavy quilts despite the freezing weather. Even after Ethan bought a washing machine, I wasn't allowed to use it. My hands would crack and bleed from frostbite every winter. It wasn't until Ethan died that I finally escaped that miserable life. Decades of emotional neglect from Ethan had left me scarred. This time around, I was curious to see how Claire would fare in that household. I returned to the village only once a month. The rest of my time was spent either studying or writing. Medical school was a 6-year program, and I earned scholarships every year. The year I graduated, I ran into Ethan again. He and Claire had returned to the village for a visit. Seeing him again, I was momentarily stunned. He looked the same as I remembered, but something about him had changed. His demeanor was darker, almost sinister, as though he carried a shadow within him. Ethan looked worn out, as if life had taken a toll on him. Following behind him was Claire, holding the hands of 2 young children. Their family dynamic seemed tense and awkward, as if they were just barely holding it together. My mother, chewing on sunflower seeds, took a trip to the village committee at the entrance of town to gather more details. When she came back, she sighed deeply and said, after Claire moved to the station, she could only afford to rent a small place outside the base. Ethan sends her his entire monthly stipend, but even that's barely enough. Shortly after she arrived, she got pregnant. She had to manage all the housework herself, and when the children came, they were both sickly, with no extra help in mounting expenses. Life has been incredibly hard for them. I couldn't help but be curious. Did Ethan ever get promoted? Promoted? Not a chance. My mom replied. He was on track for it, but Claire made such a fuss. Whenever a woman even spoke to Ethan, Claire would throw a tantrum, causing a huge scene, created a bad impression, and he missed his opportunities. I chuckled to myself. In my previous life, Ethan climbed the ranks quickly after we got married. I wouldn't go as far as to call myself a perfect wife, but things certainly went better for him when he was with me. His position back then was far higher than it is now. Shaking off the thought, I turned my attention to the present. During this time period, college graduates were guaranteed job placements. After finishing my degree, I started my internship at the provincial hospital. Oh, by the way, Mom, I said one day, I've decided to buy a house in the city. Once it's ready, you and Dad can move in with me. Over the years, I had balanced school and part-time jobs, earning scholarships and saving money. I had also contributed to improving our home life. With housing prices still reasonable, I could afford a small property. I found a charming standalone home in the city center, just a 5-minute walk from my workplace. It had a cozy little yard, perfect for growing flowers and vegetables. My parents could even run a small business nearby. We arranged for the neighbors to keep an eye on our village house so we could return whenever we wanted. Mom agreed without hesitation. During a break from my internship, I took my parents to the city and finalized the purchase. Holding the title deed in my hands, I was overwhelmed with joy and tears. In my past life, every major decision, whether it was buying a house or choosing its decor, had been dictated by Ethan. I never had a say in anything and could only comply. But now, things were different. This time, I chose bright, sunny rooms with large windows. I planted flowers and vegetables in the yard. In one corner, we kept chickens and ducks. On my way home from work one day, I even found a stray orange tabby cat and brought it home to my mom. Little by little, my home came to life, filled with warmth and love. Once all the paperwork was completed, I started my internship in earnest. Every evening after work, I returned home to enjoy the delicious meals my parents prepared. Life felt complete and content in a way I had never imagined before. They couldn't bear to see me so busy, so my mom started making steamed buns. Selling pastries was her specialty. She could shape simple steamed buns into intricate, flower-like designs. Every day, my dad would load the buns onto a cart and sell them outside the hospital, where they became a hit. The buns were large, fragrant, and visually appealing, attracting a steady stream of customers. By the end of each day, they'd earned a good sum of money, which energized them to keep going. With their efforts, our family's life steadily improved. After I officially became a full-time employee at the hospital, I saw Claire again. Ethan had been transferred to the provincial capital, and naturally, Claire followed him. They had settled in the city, but without enough money to buy a house. They could only afford to rent. Coincidentally, their rental was quite close to where I lived. Seeing how successful my mom's steamed buns were, Claire grew envious. She brought Daniel from the village to the city, and the two of them started selling steamed buns and meat-filled dumplings. However, they lacked the skill and creativity my mom had. Their buns were plain and ordinary, while their dumplings, though filling, lacked the finesse that attracted customers. To her credit, Claire was resourceful. On their first day, they offered a buy two, get one free deal, drawing in a crowd of customers. When my mom came home, she complained to me, "Emily, do you think Claire is doing this on purpose? I sell mine for 20 cents each, and she's undercutting me with her discounts. If I lower my prices any further, I won't make a profit." I comforted her. "Mom, just make fewer buns each day. Once they're sold out, close up shop. Besides, your flower-shaped buns are famous now. People will come to you for big orders, like birthday parties. One large order is worth more than 100 of her plain dumplings. And don't worry about money. I'm a full-time employee now, earning 70 to 80 yuan a month. We're doing fine." Hearing this, my mom finally relaxed. "My daughter really is the most capable," she said with a smile. During my free time, I wrote articles for newspapers, establishing a long-term collaboration that earned me over 100 yuan a month in royalties. Our family was thriving, and we didn't have a single financial worry. No matter how hard Claire tried to compete with me, she couldn't win. My parents were reassured by the steady income one brought in, and life continued peacefully for a month. One afternoon, while I was on duty at the hospital, I heard a commotion outside, shouts and cries. When I went out to see what was happening, I found Claire being dragged in by her hair, her head covered in blood. Two children followed behind her, crying and calling for their mother. The emergency room staff quickly attended to her, while a crowd of people followed, cursing loudly. Listening closely, I pieced together the story. It turned out Claire had been too greedy. Despite the sweltering heat, she refused to throw away spoiled meat. Instead, she used it to make dumplings and sold them, which caused food poisoning. When the victims came to confront her, she denied everything and hurled insults at them. This enraged them, and they beat her up. Nearby, I noticed Daniel with his arm in a sling. It looked like it was broken. Soon after, the police arrived. As the incident had escalated significantly, Ethan, who had taken leave from work, rushed over and was furious when he saw the chaos. "Claire, have you lost your mind trying to make money like this? How could you do something so unethical?" Ethan scolded her. "And what's wrong with wanting to earn more money?" Claire retorted, her head still bandaged. "If you weren't so useless, I wouldn't have to end up like this." Right there, in the hospital lobby, Claire and Ethan began shouting at each other. Just as I finished my shift and was about to leave, Claire spotted me. She rushed toward me, her eyes filled with spite. "Emily, you must be so pleased with yourself, aren't you?" she yelled. "Now, I can't measure up to you in anything," Claire said, her voice filled with bitterness. I gave her a once-over and smiled faintly. "You're right. I am doing quite well. At least I understand what should and shouldn't be done. Why can't you just live honestly? Must you always chase shortcuts and try to take the easy way out?" Claire's face turned red with embarrassment at my words. I rolled my eyes at her and walked away. People like her weren't worth my time or energy. The next day, my parents' steamed buns sold out in less than an hour. Claire stood not far away, watching with envy, her eyes practically burning red with frustration. Meanwhile, Ethan did something out of character. He forced Claire and her family to return to the village, fearing her antics would drag him down even further. I thought that would be the last time Ethan and I crossed paths. But to my surprise, after sending Claire back to the village, Ethan came looking for me again. I had just finished with a patient in my independent practice when I saw him standing before me. His unexpected presence left me momentarily stunned. "Ethan, don't waste my time. I'm working," I said curtly. "I made an appointment with you," he replied, sitting across from me without hesitation. His gaze lingered on me as he spoke, his voice heavy with emotion. "Emily, you might not believe this, but I had a dream, a very vivid one. In it, we were married. We spent 50 years together. And we even had a child. I couldn't shake how real it felt. Emily, we're meant to be. I know it. Taking a deep breath, I looked him square in the eyes. Ethan, you're seriously ill. Unfortunately, I'm not qualified to treat you. Please turn left when you exit this room and head straight to neurology. And rest assured, I've noted everything you just said. If you mention this again, I'll make sure Claire hears about it. Ethan was caught off guard by my sharp response, panic flashing across his face. He tried to reach out and grab my hand, but I immediately stood up and raised my voice. What are you doing? This is a hospital. I'm warning you. After the rotten meat bun incident, you were already issued a formal warning. If you pull something like this again, I can't guarantee you won't be forced to retire from the army and sent home. He froze in his tracks, visibly shaken. He knew the severity of the warning he had received after the food scandal, which had resulted in significant financial compensation and a formal reprimand from his superiors. I had only learned about the full extent of the incident from my parents, but my threat was enough to make Ethan leave in a hurry. Watching him retreat, I couldn't help but smirk, but inwardly, I felt uneasy. If Ethan really retained memories of our past life, he might come back to bother me again. This time, though, I wasn't the same person. I had a stable job, a good income, and my family was in a much better position. Still, I couldn't let him disrupt my life. After returning home from work, I told my parents about Ethan's visit. My dad was furious. That scoundrel. He's no good. Emily, it's about time you found someone to settle down with. If you're married, he wouldn't dare bother you anymore. Just make sure the person you choose has good character. Our family doesn't need anyone fancy. He just needs to treat you well. My mom chimed in. Exactly. I'll ask around and see if there's anyone suitable for you. Before I even had a chance to start meeting potential matches, Ethan filed for divorce from Claire. Not long after, Claire showed up at my house unannounced. Sobbing uncontrollably, she pushed her 2 children toward me, tears streaming down her face. I was momentarily stunned. What are you doing? I asked. Claire, with tears in her eyes, looked at me angrily. I know Ethan came to see you. Emily, I can't compare to you, but you can't keep taking things from me. Back then, I tried to set you 2 up, but you didn't want him. Now that my life is in ruins, you're coming after him? What are you trying to do to me? She sat down at my front door, wailing loudly. Neighbors passing by stopped to watch, pointing and whispering. Seeing her pitiful display, I couldn't help but laugh. So Ethan wants to divorce you, and you're here to take it out on me? Just because he divorces you doesn't mean I'll take him back. Let me remind you who I am. Emily, a graduate of a prestigious medical university. I work at the hospital across the street and earn 120 yuan a month. And what does Ethan have? He's almost 30, living on a meager stipend, with 2 kids in tow. Even if he's divorced, why would someone like me settle for him? I'd have to be out of my mind. Hearing this, the neighbors burst into laughter. Exactly. Someone chimed in. Dr. Emily is beautiful, has a great job, and comes from a good family. Why would she be interested in a divorced man with children? Another neighbor added. I was just telling Emily's mom about introducing my nephew to her. He's a teacher with a stable job. Someone else chimed in. Young lady, if you have family issues, deal with them yourself. Don't drag Dr. Emily into your mess. I didn't even have to say much. Claire was so overwhelmed by the neighbor's comments that she couldn't lift her head. When my parents heard about the commotion, my dad wasted no time. He came out with a bucket of water and splashed it right on Claire. Claire, years ago, you tried to steal my daughter's acceptance letter and impersonate her. We let it slide out of consideration for old ties. But now you're back, slinging mud at my daughter again? The police station knows all about you. If you keep this up, I'll personally take you there and have them deal with you. Seeing that my dad had exposed all her dirty laundry, Claire flew into a rage and stomped off. As she turned to leave, I raised my voice. Claire, don't spread any rumors about me after your divorce. If you do, I'll take you straight to the police. Her pace quickened as she ran away. Later, my parents visited the village and learned that Ethan and Claire were still arguing about their divorce. Claire had threatened to report him again. forcing Ethan to give up on the divorce. Knowing they wouldn't split, I finally felt at ease. As long as they stayed out of my life, I didn't care what happened to them. I hoped they'd stay tied to each other forever. After that, I hardly saw Ethan anymore. A year later, I got married. By then, Claire was pregnant with her third child. When we returned to the village to celebrate with a banquet, Claire, heavily pregnant, came over with her 2 children to join the festivities. As my husband and I greeted the guests, one of the villagers approached us. "Well, Emily's finally getting married. What kind of man is your husband? Emily's almost 30, isn't she? Hopefully. He's not too much older than her." My mom shot the villager a sharp look. "You don't need to worry about that. He's one of her senior classmates from medical school. A doctor just like her. Both of them are top talents at the hospital." Emily said herself, "Women should be independent and have their own careers." Her in-laws respect her for that. They even gave 1,000 yuan as her dowry. We gave them a small house as part of my dowry, and everyone around us couldn't stop praising the arrangement. "Emily is really incredible," one neighbor said. "I could tell she'd go far from a young age. She studied well and became the pride of our village, a golden phoenix flying out to greater heights. And now, marrying someone from the same prestigious school? They've all got great jobs now. It's such a pity about Claire." Though, Claire stayed silent the entire time, quietly slipping away once the attention shifted elsewhere. Watching her leave, I couldn't help but smile. She must regret it now. In her past life, she stole my life and lived it to its fullest. This, however, was the life she was supposed to have from the start. On the day of the wedding banquet, my husband changed into a formal outfit. He stood tall and elegant, exuding a calm and gentle demeanor that earned the admiration of everyone in the village. Next to him, Ethan looked utterly dejected, his dull appearance only accentuated by comparison. From across the crowd, Ethan watched me and my husband standing together. As he heard the villagers' praises, his face turned ashen. The next day, as we headed back to the city, Ethan stood far away, clearly wanting to approach me but hesitating. My husband, aware of the situation with Ethan and his family, stepped in front of me protectively. "I've got this," I told him with a smile. "It'll only take 2 sentences to handle him." He nodded, stepping aside but staying close. "I'll be waiting over there. If anything happens, just call me." I approached Ethan, and he looked at me with a mixture of guilt and desperation. "Emily, I remember everything now," he said. "It wasn't a dream. What we had in our past life really happened. I'm so sorry. Can we start over?" I laughed softly but without warmth. "That's not possible. Ethan, I owe you nothing. On the contrary, you owe me an entire lifetime. Your pity, your so-called debt, and your humiliation have left scars I'll never forget. I've moved on, and I suggest you do the same. Don't appear in front of me again. It's all in the past now." His eyes reddened, but before he could respond, Claire appeared out of nowhere. Seeing us together, her face twisted with rage. "You slut. I knew you couldn't let this go," she screamed. "Here you are, trying to seduce him again. I warned you to stay away. You think you can steal him back? I'll kill you." In her hand was a pair of scissors, and before I could react, she lunged at me. In an instant, a shadow stepped between us. It was Ethan. With a sickening thud, the blade plunged into his abdomen. Clutching his stomach, Ethan turned to look at me. "Emily, I'm sorry," he muttered. Claire, realizing what she'd done, let out a blood-curdling scream. "Ethan, who do you belong to? Whose man are you?" My husband, who had been watching from a distance, rushed over and kicked Claire to the ground. "It doesn't matter whose man he is. What matters is that you've committed a crime, and now you'll face the consequences." Claire, finally grasping the gravity of her actions, begged for forgiveness, but Daniel wouldn't let her off so easily, grabbing her by the collar. He slapped her repeatedly until her face was swollen and bruised. Ethan was rushed to the hospital. Although his life was saved, the injury left him severely weakened. Because of the incident, Ethan was forced to retire from the army and return home. Claire was sentenced to life in prison for intentional harm. Before she was sent away, she repeatedly requested to see me. But I refused. I wasn't generous enough to meet her, to listen to her spew negativity and guilt. In the end, everything they owed me in the last life was repaid in full this time around. As for Ethan, after his discharge, he returned home with his 2 children. His injury left him unable to do heavy labor, so he stayed at home, looking after the kids. He and Daniel lived in the old house, scraping by on a tight budget. Ethan tried his hand at small businesses but failed multiple times, losing the little capital he had. Eventually, he gave up and resigned himself to village life, helping out neighbors with odd jobs when they needed an extra hand. When I heard about his situation, I couldn't help but sigh. Without me, Ethan's life was even harder, but this was his karma, his retribution. Meanwhile, I had fully settled in the city and built a home there. 6 months after getting married, my husband and I decided to have a child. My in-laws came to help out, and the moment I saw my little one for the first time, I was overwhelmed with gratitude. The tiny baby nestled in my arms, grasping my finger tightly, and gave me the sweetest smile. I couldn't help but think of my past life. After giving birth, I had worked tirelessly to raise my child, only to have him grow up to be just like his father, completely dismissive of my sacrifices. Even after Ethan died, that child wanted to bury him with his first wife. The thought had made me so angry I could have coughed up blood. But now, everything was different. This little one was like a warm quilt for my soul. Kind, obedient, and loving. My husband adored our child and often said how lucky we were to have such a sweet addition to our family. Our home was filled with laughter and joy. In this life, I have people who love me and whom I love in return. That alone makes everything worth it.